October Red Boxing at Wasserman head office in London, joined by no other than Kalle Sauerland.
How are you?
All right, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Not too bad. Welcome to Wasserman. Welcome to Wasserman Boxing.
Exciting times ahead. Today has been the signing of Matty Harris from Leamington, a new heavyweight, yet again a new heavyweight in the game. We know that you've recently signed Jose Stewart. Talk to me a bit about Matty Harris and why him?
Well, first of all, we have to go back in the history of our company, which was formerly Team Sauerland, now Wasserman Boxing, and we've always had a big link to the heavyweight division. And, going back to champions Nikolai Valuev, Evander Holyfield, David Hay, Alexander Povetkin, all boxed under our banner, and it's fantastic and it's exciting to sign with any fighter, but a heavyweight starting his career, you're in for one hell of a ride. And at this moment in time, look at the heavyweight division. Okay, we've had a bit of a disappointment, of course, with the lack of the Fury Joshua fight. I'm an optimist. I still believe that fight will happen in the near future. I wouldn't say the nearest of futures, but it's something I think the industry will almost push that it has to happen. But at the same time, there's so many interesting names in the heavyweight division that you look at it and there's great fights to be made where even a belt isn't necessary. So you're looking at, we also represent, many being tipped as the new next heavyweight champion, Filip Hrgovic, fantastic talent. We have other heavyweights from Denmark, Kem Lundqvist, we have fantastic talents out there. And Matty is not only a talent who we've had on our radar for a long period of time, but when you meet him, he's a character. He's a good-looking lad, big, tall lad. I asked him how tall he was, and I think he's got to be amongst the biggest of the young heavyweights coming through at over 7 foot. He's huge, and he's someone who's got a lot of potential. You have to realise that potential, and what we will do is create a path that we believe will get him to the top. And we've worked with big champions, but we've also taken fighters from their first pro fight to world titles many times. So it's not uncharted territories for us, but it's going to be an exciting time.
So the merger then of Sauerland with Wasserman, obviously we know that happened this year, exciting times. We've seen a shift in boxing in regards to broadcasting. Tell us a little bit about the Wasserman future and the broadcasting. Where can we watch your fights?
Yeah.
We're all getting excited. Where can we watch them?
When we announced the coming together with Wasserman and forming Wasserman Boxing in March, and there was a lot of media interest in terms of what you're doing, what's going to happen, this is exciting, this is new, this is fresh. Wasserman, if anyone doesn't know, are the biggest sports agency on planet Earth. 1,200 employees, 100 Premier League footballers, 40 Premier League winners. Yeah, so it brings boxing to a whole new level in terms of potential. You have to realise that potential. Now here we are, a few months later, 3 months later, and we've signed a hatful of fighters. It's just the beginning of what I said. Give us the 6 months, you'll see the plan, and it will all come to fruition. So I can't answer all those questions now, but Matty, today's a big step on the way, but there's other steps like we just mentioned before. Jose Stewart, also a big UK heavyweight, future potential, and there's going to be more. But there's also Linus Adolfia. Then we have Razor Ali, for example. We've got other announcements coming later this week, which I can't talk about just yet. So there's lots of names on the UK side of things. There's lots of things going on in Europe. About to announce a string of shows in different territories there. So we're not just a UK promoter. It's not something that we want to get too involved with, but at the same time we're looking at it, and the dynamics of the media industry are changing a lot. exciting times. There's, you know, fantastic opportunities for young fighters coming through, and, you know, we're also very much open to working with other promoters. So we have a bit of a different model. So we look at, you know, we have worked successfully with so many different promoters, and that's the way to create the biggest fights. It's the way to manage careers in the right way, and, you know, it's something we'll continue to do. So it's not, we're a bit different like that. So we're not here to just completely try and take over, as some people like to say. No, we're here to take it to another level, working together, making this industry even better, and signing great guys like we did today.
So you mentioned about working together with other promoters. That seems to be, you know, the sting that promoters don't necessarily work with each other.
No, they don't, unless they're forced, you know, and that's often the case. I mean, it has got better. You can go back to the days of, you know, the 70s and 80s often, where you had Don King and Bob Arum in the States, and they would, you know, get them to work together was like solving a civil war. But you know, you know, obviously, you've got in the UK, you've had the history between Eddie and Frank, and very few or almost none. I don't think they've ever done a press conference together. And that's listen, everyone has to have their own model, but with us, it's, you know, we're happy to work here, we're happy to work there, and it's a case of creating, you know, ultimately we overemphasize the importance of our own role as promoters. What we are facilitators for the fighters to get on the best platforms, to get the best fights, to maximise their earnings. Hey, I'm not Mother Teresa. They maximise their earnings, I maximise my earnings, and everyone's a winner. You know, and that's the way we look at things. So we're very diplomatic about it. There's no hidden agendas with us, and that's the way we've moved forward for the last 5 decades, whatever it is. You know, I'm not that old, and it's the old man that was doing that before. But we've been around for 40 odd years, and that's something that we're proud of that history. But at the same time, we look forward, and you know, we're working on lots of different ventures. Some curveballs we've thrown recently out there with KSI, of course, and, you know, we'll just keep on doing our thing.
We like that. We like the fact that, you know, personally, I think bringing KSI into boxing, we know that he had his YouTube match. I watched it. We knew then that boxing was going to start to change. It evolves. I mean, you looking at KSI as an investment for the business, what drew your attention to him and how he could benefit, working with him together with KSI, could benefit Wasserman? Yeah,
I mean, you've just got to look at KSI as first of all as an individual, and then actually in his sporting agenda. And KSI, if you look in the last couple of years, and the whole, forget sports, and the whole entertainment business, as a single person, he is, I don't know, 2021's version of Michael Jackson. He has got a following that no other, and I'd be probably leaning out my window if I said any sport, but definitely in boxing, there's no one who comes close to the numbers that he has. Not even close. In fact, if you put all the boxing together, you wouldn't probably still come close. So you can't not look at that. And you can't, because that's eyeballs for our sport, which can grow. But at the same time, he actually takes the sport very, very seriously. He trains every day, he trains like an athlete, he trains exactly the same way. I mean, he's clearly, by his own admission, he's starting, so he's a novice, but he's had a couple of fights already. He's actually won those fights. And, you know, his ambition is, this isn't about him so much, it's about a whole stable and of having a different approach on those events. And, you know, I've been quite vocal in the past about certain matchups where I've just said, you know, that for me is a bit of a farce. I'm not going to go into too much detail on those matchups, but I think that if you take it for what it is, and that's young men and women, hopefully they're going to more come into it as well, who are into entertainment, but they are prepared to go through the mill of every fight. There's no shortcuts. We won't accept shortcuts. And prepared to put in that grind, then there's nothing to stop them going into trying boxing. And that's I know a lot of hardcore will say try, but you don't try boxing. No, you're right. You don't try boxing. But if you go through the mill in a gym, day in, day out, go through sparring, go through that whole phase, then you're not trying it, then you're doing it, and there's a big difference. I'm not going to name and shame here, but there are certain celebrities who come to us during lockdown and said, oh, I think I fancy a fight, and I'm thinking, right, well, they're not touring at the moment, so that's what gives it away. That's from the music business. They're not touring at the moment, so they're not making much. So they're looking for things to do with their time. Time makes money, you know. Okay, so tell us your plans. Anyway, they went out and tried. I think they tried a week probably of boxing, and they came out and said, you know what, they're very nice, but we'll stick to what we're doing. And but fair enough, you know, fair play, because there are certain people who think, I guess, that there's shortcuts. There's no shortcuts in boxing. You don't play boxing, so at any level. So I think that if it's taken correctly, what's the difference between a young man or woman who works a normal day job and wants to start boxing, or what's the difference between someone who's a YouTuber or a rapper or whatever it is, a celebrity who wants to start boxing? As long as they're prepared to put in those hours, and there's no shortcut just because you're who you are, then there's nothing. Then I've got zero against it, and I would challenge anyone to have something against it with me, and have an open debate.
The Wasserman vision, your view, listening to you for the past few minutes, is more panoramic.
It's a house of boxing. So I don't see it as, we're not classic boxing promoters. I see it as a house of boxing. We represent fighters. You know, we work with other promoters. Yes, we're doing our own shows. Yes, we're going to be doing entertainment factors to it. But it's a house of boxing. And if you look at what we have as an infrastructure, which is second to none in the industry, we'd be fools not to be looking at it like that. You know, we'd be fools not to look at how can we utilise this amazing Wasserman world of, you know, everything from, you know, from cycling to football to basketball. You know, there's so many different elements of this company. That's not even going into events. You know, from A to Z in the sports industry, there's nothing that's not covered under the Wasserman umbrella. Now, in Wasserman boxing, we have to take that approach as well and look at it from A to Z. So, you know, there will be some curveballs where people will say, well, that's you know, but I say, well, you know, mate, don't get me wrong, on some things I'm super old school, but on this one here, we just have to look at it very openly.
It's quite interesting that you say that, because you sort of, like I said, you're not looking at it from a narrow-minded point of view. It's not a single point of view. You're looking at all avenues, all things that can be brought into this game to change it, to grow it, to evolve it.
Absolutely, but I wouldn't say that I'm claiming to be a pioneer in that, because look at the way the industry is changing from above. When I say from above, you know, the money doesn't come out of Eddie Hearn's pocket, it doesn't come out of Kalle's pocket, it doesn't come out of Frank Warren's pocket, it doesn't come out of Bob Arum's pocket. The money comes from media. It doesn't come from Gates either, or else there wouldn't have been any boxing in lockdown. It comes from media. Now look at the media industry, look at the change of the media industry. And if you look at that change of the media industry, it's something you have to go with it. You have to look at the different needs and requirements of the media business, and that is constantly changing. It's almost not a month that goes by now where there's not some new player that pops up. You know, we had obviously recently Triller, you know, totally new, almost, I would say, bizarrely beautiful take on the sport. You know, then you had, you know, obviously DAZN turned up in the US and blew everything out the water overnight. You had HBO leaving, you had Fox joining, you had ESPN joining, but you look at also how these media companies are going from there. You know, there's lots of different platforms that are constantly going to be coming, and some will be smaller, but believe me, there's still a lot of big names that are going to join it, because as a media outlet, as a truly global sport, with global media interests, where boxing does, although it's a niche sport, we must never think that we're some major sport. We're a niche sport, but I would say a highly interesting niche sport. We can cover pretty much the planet, whereas any other sport, you can't go off and, you know, say I'm going to go and buy the Champions League globally. Whereas boxing, you can invent the wheel to a certain extent, or reinvent the wheel to a certain extent for your partner. And that's something that we're very mindful of, and something that we aim to aspire towards.
Brilliant. I know you can't announce for the broadcasting, etc. These things are coming out soon. But because of the innovation,
it won't be one thing. We look at a multitude of different things. Okay. So for us, it's more of an overall movement. That's why I said it was such a big announcement in March. I said, and people were saying, "No, what are you doing?" I said, just relax. I said, give us 6 months, maybe 9, 12 months, but you will see over that period of time. And you can see now, obviously the signings of lots of youngsters in the UK, but also in Europe. You're going to see some very interesting moves on certain shows. You'll see the way we present certain things, and it will be a bit different, but it will also still represent the old school as well.
That's good to hear. So one of the things that I wanted to ask, because the way that we move, you've got YouTube, everything is more or less application based. Is an app something that Wasserman is thinking about developing for broadcasting in the future?
We would be fools if we weren't looking at it. Of course, fools, because that is the future, and it's not the future actually; it's the present already. DAZN theoretically is an app; it's an OTT channel, but in the meantime, if I turn my telly on, you see DAZN. I can get it up in 2 seconds. So it's not quite what we understood of an app 3-4 years ago. Now let's fast forward, go 3-4 years down the line from here. And you see big media companies, moving towards old school television programming. I put my TV channel on, I go to a TV channel. Even those companies or broadcasters are moving towards the OTT sector, because that is the future. For us as a consumer, I think it is going to be frustrating sometimes. I know it myself, and forget sport. If I want to watch a film now, I'll go look on Netflix first to kind of find out there, then I'll go on Amazon, then I go on Apple TV, and that offering will be no different in boxing. I think it's going to be multiple spreads, and that's on the one hand very exciting. I think there will be some frustrations with certain boxing fans, because you're going to have so many different channels, and it's something that ultimately helps the industry, because it's an industry that relies on itself. We don't get help from subsidies, we don't get help from grants. We got zero help in the pandemic as professional boxing. And I'm not moaning about that, I'm not complaining about that, because there are people who would say, oh well, you've got enough money. But our business relies on itself. We are a business which is, Boxing Pride is nothing but an entrepreneur. He goes out and he looks at how he can put shows together or how he can develop a fighter. That's a project in itself, and that will take every means necessary moving forward in what direction that is. And the fact that the media market is moving so much and it's so exciting, I think is a great thing for the sport.
Yeah, totally agree. So when can we expect some announcements from yourself in relation to broadcasting and fight dates?
I think fight dates, I would say, in the next few weeks already, without giving away too much, but in the next couple of weeks, something like that. And then it will become clearer and clearer of certain directions we're going in, and not just UK, but also in other countries. And I think in the autumn we will have a minimum of around 8-9 shows. So those are all in the planning now. It is still a complicated time for us. We're not singly based on one country. So for example, Mairis Bridis, the 3-time world champion, winner of the World Boxing Super Series from Latvia. We're now looking. He's got a big mandatory defence of his world title against Sislak from Poland. We're looking, where's the country where we know we can put that on easier. So it's not like I can just say, well, I'll book that arena and it's done. I have to look at a multitude of different places, and that's something that we're putting together at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time speaking
Thank
to
you
us
very
on
much.
Boxing.
Been a pleasure hosting you.
Oh, well, hopefully I can speak to you again soon.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Hi, and thank you for watching October Red Boxing. Like, subscribe, and tap the bell for notifications. You can also find us on Instagram at October Red Boxing and on Twitter, October Red UK. And remember, at October Red, we stay ready.